Welcome back, everybody, into Bill's Chat. I am Josh McCarty. With me tonight on location is Luka. Luka, tell the folks where you're at tonight.
I am in the middle of North Indianapolis tonight recording for this episode as we were boots on the ground for the game today, which was a fantastic time in Windianapolis as the Bills were able to take the dub here in the this is technically East time zone? I don't even know.
It
Central,
is.
East, yeah, whatever it is. It's Indianapolis and it's owned by the Bills now, thankfully, after today's result.
Yeah, so Luka was at the game, and we're going to talk a little bit about his game experience as we go on. I want to apologize right off the bat if my camera shot on YouTube is a little bit dark. I have one light that went out this weekend, and then another overhead light that went out today. So we're going to get through it today, and then we'll get it all set up again for next week. And Luka's obviously set up in a unique location, but it looks sharp, Luka. Cousin's office looks very nice. Luka, the Bills get a 30-20 victory over the Indianapolis Colts in Indianapolis today to improve to 8-2. They were within an eyelash of having an opportunity to play for the 1 seed next week, but the Chiefs ended up blocking a field goal at the end to beat the Broncos. When this game ended and the Bills walked off the field victorious with a Mitch Trubisky kneel down, what was going through your mind as far as reflecting on this game?
As far as reflecting on the game, just business done, taking care of business, job done, everything like that. I will say, just in general, looking around the stadium, there was a lot of Bills fans. Particularly now, luckily, me and my one friend, we were blessed. Shout out, Joel. We were 50-yard line club seats. Somehow we fell upon these beautiful seats, dead nuts on the 50. But if you look to our left across the field, if you look to our left near side as well, it was just all Bills fans. Josh, there was a time even earlier in the game where I'm sure on the broadcast you could see Jordan Phillips literally just pumping up the crowd, and it felt surreal sitting here at an opposition stadium, and you're watching a defensive lineman try to get noise on the road, and it was doing something. It was you could hear it. It was pretty well balanced between home fans and opposition, being Bills fans. So, but as the game was done, I mean, realistically, the feeling was quite simply job done. It was an easy spot where you could see the Bills kind of laying a little bit of an egg as they're looking forward to that big crucial game against Kansas City, and they got the job done fairly simply. Speed bumps along the way, but we'll talk about that. But overall, a win's a win. 10-point win on the road where it was honestly bigger. It would have been bigger if you didn't have your kick returner defending Alec Pierce on a fade. So, I mean, I'm not going to fault Codrington for not being able to defend Alec Pierce on a fade. So is what it is. But
No. I
so
think we see now why the Bills were hesitant to list him as a cornerback.
Yeah.
Holy that guy is small when he's on the field.
Well, Alec Pierce is also a big boy too. So
Yeah.
a little bit of a mismatch there, but 10-point win, nothing to sneeze at there. In the dying seconds, they got it up within 10. So it was a good game overall, and job well done.
So you know what this game was to me, Luka? This was a professional win. This was a take care of business win. Like you mentioned, there were no style points in this game. This was not a game that we're going to look back on, even at the end of the year when we want to go back and watch a game and be like, that's a fun rewatch. It's not. But this was to me a game that previous versions of the Bills had found a way to lose, whether it's the Steelers opener where they get the block punt, the Jets game, the opener last year where Rodgers goes down, the Bronco game last year in Buffalo, the Vikings game in 2022. There's a couple other examples I had queued up in my brain, and now the New England game, the monsoon game on Monday Night Football, just dumb games. Even if you want to throw the Hail Murray game in there, dumb games where the Bills let an inferior team stick around, they make mental mistakes, and they find a way to lose. The Bills, to their credit, they had a decent sized lead early. They made a bunch of mistakes in a row where the game could have slipped away, and then they pulled up their bootstraps. Is that the saying I'm looking for? And they really just laced up their bootstraps. There you go. and went out there and took care of business.
Yeah.
And that's all you can really ask for. This is a day where the Kansas City Chiefs needed a blocked field goal to beat Bo Nix at Arrowhead. We've seen Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens lose at home to Gardner Minshew and the Las Vegas Raiders. We always want to look at football like it's a transitive property where the better team should win. This team beats this team, so that team should be better than this team. The Bills are better than the Colts, yada, yada, yada. That's not how it works. It's a funny game. It's a funny shaped ball, and weird things happen. And this, to me, Luka, all week long, felt like a game that was setting up for weird things to happen. Obviously, Keon Coleman, Amari Cooper being out, very, very less than ideal. Then you look at the fact that Joe Flacco laid a stinker last week against the Minnesota Vikings. And all week long in my brain, I'm thinking, God, if I wasn't a Bills fan, if I was just me looking at this point spread where the Bills are favored by 4.5 by kickoff, I would be all over the Colts because I don't think Joe Flacco, this is me before the game, I don't think Joe Flacco is as bad as Brian Flores made him look. Brian Flores is having a fantastic season. I think that was an overreaction to how bad Joe Flacco looked. I also don't think that the Michael Pittman loss is as big of a deal as it's made out to be because he's not fully healthy, and we know how good A.D. Mitchell is. He showed it today. And I do think that the Bills could be neutered a lot by missing their two boundary receivers. And this is a classic sandwich spot where they had an emotional division win last week against the Dolphins. And then they have a game coming up next week against the Chiefs. To me, it all made sense where the Bills could absolutely lose a heartbreaking game, just like the one they lost in Jacksonville. There's another one where they didn't even score a touchdown. But even though this game had all those ingredients and the recipe was there for a heartbreaker, the Bills put their big boy pants on, outclassed the Colts late, went on an absolutely first-class drive to ice this game, get the clock down, get the timeouts away from the Colts, led by a massive screen pass to Shakir. And I come away from this game, if I'm going to take anything else away from this game, I come away thinking that this is a team that knows how to win. They expect to win. And even on a day where you don't have your fastball, this is a team that's going to, more often than not, find a way to win.
This is the kind of win when you know the Bills are just elevated against majority of the rest of the league, right? It is Bills, Chiefs, the supreme teams where your offense is having, in my eyes, it was a letter grade C- day. I mean, that's what the offense was. It was not good by any stretch of the imagination. It left a lot to be desired. And yet you still have, as we talked about, a 10-point win that really felt like a 17-point win on the road in a spot like you talked about, where a lot of things could have gone against you. There could have been a lot of excuses, a lot of reasons that you fall short. And we have seen previous teams fall short in those spots. They got it done, plain and simple. And it shows the growth of Josh Allen. It shows the growth, honestly, of Sean McDermott, like being able to have this team prepped, ready to go week in, week out, get the job done, move on, move forward. You mentioned the Hail Murray. The last time the Bills even had a chance to be 8-2 was the Hail Murray, and it fell short. Now we're 8-2. Here we are. We were talking about it, me and my buddy, as we're leaving the stadium. It's like 8-2. When was the last time we were 8-2? I thought maybe 2020 was that time, but they were 7-3 after losing that Hail Murray game. So it's one of those ones where it's like, wow, it really does feel like it's been a long time.
1993.
Which is crazy to think about because there have been good Bills teams of recent, and somehow they haven't been able to get there because of these slip-ups we're talking about. And here we are, business done. As you said, lace up the bootstraps, get in, get out, take care of business. I mean, you had Pat McAfee leave his suite with 8 minutes left in the game. That's how good it was. That's how dominant you were. You look over at that suite and he's gone. Shout out Bubba Gumpino. He was the only one there with 3 minutes left.
And the Bills Twitter account trolled him and he played into it. It was a beautiful thing. I don't know if you saw that because you were traveling.
Okay. No, I saw it. Joel showed me after the game and stuff, which I love that. I love that he kind of had a little bit back and forth, and I'm very curious to see what happens on the Pat McAfee show tomorrow with everything.
He's a good sport about that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And he respects the hell out of the Bills. So like, it's not like it's any bad taste or anything. So, wow, Mechie just scored. So it's it's one of those things where it's a little surreal, but not surprising that the Bills were able to do exactly what they did today, with a lot of excuses, a lot of things that could go wrong, as we keep saying, and yet they just Josh Allen has a bad day and it didn't cost them the game. You know, the defense was shaky at times in the run game, still got it done. You know, Adonai Mitchell, AD Mitchell having a decent day on the boundary, which is supposedly the strength of the Bills defense, still got the job done. Like, things weren't perfect on all facets. I mean, Codrington, he might get referenced later on in this episode. He had probably his worst day as a Bill, and yet still dominant win, got it done. And that just shows why the Bills are truly in that elite echelon and are contenders, because even when it's not all working, just like the Chiefs, even when things aren't going against them, or they're just not on all cylinders, they can still win, and win kind of decisively. And it's a beautiful thing to see.
You know, one thing you mentioned early in your point, and you may have even forgotten you mentioned it, was you mentioned Sean McDermott. That is not lost on me, what he did today. And if you're a fan of Colin Cowherd, I think Colin Cowherd is an acquired taste. I enjoy his show, and I think he always makes this Mike Tyson point about the Bills. If they are the Mike Tyson team, they're the bully, quote unquote. Not that we're trying to glorify bullying, but they're the team that they want to get you down and beat you by 30, and that's where they're comfortable, and they just want to dance on your grave, so to speak, like they did against the Jaguars this year and the Titans this year. And he's like, the Bills, when things get tough, that's where like the rubber meets the road. That's where they can struggle, particularly against good teams. Now, today wasn't a good team, but what Tyler Dunn wrote about Sean McDermott in that long piece last year, one takeaway was that he's tight and his teams are tight and he's uptight in crucial situations. And today there were several situations where it felt like this one can get away from him. The Josh Allen interception in the second half, which was maybe even not even his worst interception of the day, but that one felt like, oh my gosh, the Bills just got the ball back and Josh Allen just hands it right back to him, throws it right to Kenny Moore. And, you know, Sean McDermott he kept the team on the rails and found a way to keep his team calm, keep his team believing, finding a way to win. And that is not lost on me. Let's talk about Josh Allen's day, though, Luka. This was not a good Josh Allen game. I do think there were some good Josh Allen moments, though. And that's what you want out of your franchise quarterback. On a day where you're not playing your best, on a day where you make a couple mistakes, what do you have for me when the game's on the line? There were some real stinker plays from Josh Allen in this game. We already talked about overthrowing Kincaid when he is wide open, could walk into the end zone. The play that actually ended up getting Kincaid injured, his left knee. We'll talk about that later on. Still don't know the details of that. Right after that, the Bills fail a fourth down. Then the Colts go down and score, get it 10-0. Bills get the ball back, and Josh Allen throws a mind-numbing interception where he locks into Shakir the entire time. And even though he's locked into Shakir, he throws a ball that is not even high enough to clear the linebacker, EJ Speed, who should not have been able to intercept a pass intended for Shakir. So mind-numbing to understand that one. And then you go to the one I talked about in the second half where the Bills are clinging to this 7-point lead. You're just begging for the Bills to get this to 2 possessions so they can force the Colts to go more one-dimensional, get Jonathan Taylor out of the mix. And he throws that awful interception to Kenny Moore. That's the bad. But the good is, into the first half, puts the team on his back along with Mac Hollins and drives down for a very crucial 3 points to extend the lead to 7 points. The touchdown drive, that touchdown run was all him and Spencer Brown. Spencer Brown is such a ridiculous athlete at right tackle, Luka. I don't know if you were able to fully appreciate it in the building, the play he made going from right tackle, pulling all the way to the left and clearing out the path for Josh Allen. It was just, there's not 5 right tackles in the league that can make that play. And then the end of the game, just captaining a drive where you were just draining the clock, cashing in first down after first down, pulling the timeouts away from the Colts and ripping any chance they have away from winning that game. That's what a great quarterback does. Anybody can be a great quarterback where you're having a day where you're going for 404 touchdowns and everything's great. But on a day where it doesn't start off great and things are chaotic and you're down your two best receivers, arguably, and then your tight end goes down and now it's chaos and you're on the road, he still manages to put his team on the back, settle it down, forget the mistakes, not go into the emotional tank, and make the plays necessary to win. We saw Tom Brady do it a million times against the Bills, play 3 bad quarters and do enough in the fourth quarter to win. Today it was Josh Allen. He got it done. So I don't want to give him an F for the day, but overall, what did you think of Josh Allen's day?
No, I think you summarized it perfectly. Plain and simply, it was one of those ones where previous Josh Allen would have started bottling that. You would have seen the quicksand happen. You would have seen, the hairy trigger, just the spray all over the place. That Shakir interception, man, watching that live, getting the sideline view of that and watching that, I immediately put my head down and I was like, I don't understand how he threw that short. I just didn't comprehend what I was seeing. So a lot was there, but new Josh Allen, this version of Josh Allen was quite simply one where none of that matters. He's still the MVP caliber Josh Allen, and he's going to get that job done. You reference, look, it's not a perfect passing day. He's still 280 yards of crucial passing yards, 2 interceptions, no big deal. He still runs one in, and he's doing it effectively when the game truly needs it, even as he kept making mistakes. It wasn't bothering him. It wasn't getting to him. His weapons were down, all of that stuff you mentioned. And he was able to continue to be productive when needed, when it mattered, and got the job done. And that's what you need out of that MVP, out of that top tier quarterback. You see it with Mahomes. No one ever talks about Mahomes. They reference that he has a lot of interceptions and all this kind of stuff, but they keep winning. And it's because Mahomes does show up when they need him to. That's what big time quarterbacks do. The days don't always have to be perfect to still be an elite quarterback. You just need to be elite when it matters the most. And Allen did that today in Indianapolis. And it was beautiful. I mean, it was a tale of two halves for him. It really felt like, even though he had that interception in the second half, it still felt like the first half was a little bit erratic, kind of recentered at halftime, does throw that really bad interception, and it didn't bother him one bit, and he was able to be much more effective in that second half overall. That honestly, I came away from that second half thinking, even though it was one interception, no touchdowns thrown, it's like, no, Josh Allen was 5 times better in that second half, and he really settled in and got the job done.
Yeah. Josh Allen, to me, this was not one of those games where it's like you're building your MVP case. I don't particularly care about that. I think that's more of one where, we'll figure it out at the end of the year. But to me, this is one where you are building your franchise quarterback case, because you need your quarterback to be able to pull his team out of the fire while they're in the fire. That's always been the reason why quarterbacks like Dak Prescott and Kirk Cousins, despite the statistics mirroring the best quarterbacks in the league, to me are always a notch below those guys, because they can't figure it out in the moment. They can always get the statistics, but when they're in the moment, when they're in the chaos, they don't figure it out then. That they let it get worse and worse and worse, and they get garbage time statistics. Josh Allen pulled it out of the chaos today and got it to the finish line. Let's talk about Mac Hollins. We all know the story. I don't need to keep repeating it. Down Keon Coleman, down Amari Cooper, losing Dalton Kincaid in the second quarter. He came back briefly, but then went back out. They needed a wide receiver to step up. And we can talk about Curtis Samuel, who at least in the first half was, hey, he was visible. He was making plays. He was 4 for 35, which at this point, that seems like a huge win. But when Josh Allen needed a dude out, not named Khalil Shakir, because I think at this point we all know Khalil Shakir is a very capable player. Mac Hollins was a dude today. And I want to walk back a lot of my criticism I've made of Mac Hollins. I feel like Mac Hollins is better than I gave him credit for. And I do want to say that my personal criticism of Mac Hollins, I think, was more indirect criticism of Curtis Samuel, because I was irritated that Mac Hollins was in a position where he was playing 70, 80% of the snaps. I don't feel like he's that type of player. But to his credit, it's not his fault that Curtis Samuel has been a massive disappointment. And to his credit, Luka, I can't really remember a mistake he's made this year. It's not a mistake to not be as talented as Amari Cooper. It's not a mistake to not be as fast as Jamar Chase. Mac Hollins has a somewhat unique skill set. He's a bigger receiver. He's got great hands. That play he made at the end of the first half, where Josh Allen scrambles out to his right and finds Mac Hollins open. He's looking back into the sun, catches the ball, slides down on the ground to catch it, and then in what I can only call a Zay Jones-esque motion, manages in the same motion to slide back up to his feet, not really lose any speed, and outrun world-class athletes to the sideline to save the Bills timeouts. It was such a great combination of a great play by a player and then a heady run after the catch by the player, understanding the situation, understanding the moment. I just can't say enough about Mac Hollins. And to me, this is where he should be. When guys go down, he steps in and he shines. And I thought he shined very, very bright today.
Yeah. When you need someone to step up, Mac Hollins is not the guy that's on the top of anyone's list, right? Mm-hmm. As you said perfectly, Shakir, and you expect and he will deliver exactly what you get out of him. But you're down Cooper, you're down Coleman, who have been both, I mean, more on Keon. It's like Keon's been really coming up of late, and it's just you need someone to step up. Curtis Samuel was at least present, and it's not like he's going to get a game check award for just being useless when you need him to. But as you're saying, Mac Hollins makes a couple really big grabs in this game. He's the leading receiver for the Bills for a reason. And you say, you want to walk back stuff and give him credit. I think it's one of those things where he had a rough game even earlier this year where he dropped a couple crucial balls. I think it was in the Baltimore game, I want to say. And that was just one of those ones where it was easy to target him as well, because it wasn't necessarily about him. It was just the receiving group as a whole was just underwhelming and underperforming at that point, and we got blown out. And it's just easy to just point the finger at all the guys, including Mac Hollins. So props to him for kind of just stepping up in a game where it was absolutely necessary and then getting them out of it and doing everything he can to just be a reliable weapon in this offense that, it was just a shame, honestly, that they weren't able to get him a kind of a touchdown he deserved in this one, because it really felt like there were a couple red zone visits. The one that was at the end where it ends with the James Cook touchdown, I kept looking at it. I'm like, Mac Hollins is a good spot here. Maybe you can get him on that quick slant, which he's a perfect body. If he can get inside leverage, he's obviously a big frame with good hands, as you said. And, we've seen him get a couple touchdowns this year in that similar fashion, where he just hits him with a little bit of quick footwork, takes the inside leverage, big body. Josh finds him, simple touchdown. And it felt like a day where he definitely deserved that after that 44-yard catch earlier in the game, and so on and so forth, being just that key outside receiver that Allen needed at times and could trust and make plays happen for him. So yeah, shout out Mac Hollins. A very good game. And, happy to see it, where you're going to need it, even when Amari Cooper and Keon Coleman come back. For whatever reason, you still need to have dependable, reliable guys that Josh Allen can trust. And this could be that game, Josh, where, Allen looks back and just knows, or at least feels he can continue to be confident that a Mac Hollins out there can still get the job from, midfield, down the field, whatever it is.
Did we learn anything about the defense today? Because this was not a high quality opponent. We understand that. I think Joe Flacco, clearly his best days are behind him. You're going to talk a little bit when we get into your experience at the stadium that the Colts fans certainly aren't in favor of who their starting quarterback is right now. But they did have 3 interceptions today. They had 4 sacks. And to me, it wasn't even just the splash plays, the interceptions and the sacks. It was the timeliness of them. Bailing out Josh Allen after his interception to keep the Colts from getting points. The Greg Rousseau forced fumble was one of the best forced fumbles I've seen, to the point where I followed where I thought the ball was going because I didn't think Rousseau had a chance to get there when Flacco was in the pocket. And Taron Johnson, what else can you say about him? I mean, he actually had a chance to have a second pick six today and he dropped it. But just an absolute playmaker out there. And then, there were guys like AJ Epinesa, they got sacks late. Quentin Jefferson got a sack that was on 4th down where Flacco held the ball for an eternity. Austin Johnson now has as many career interceptions as Sauce Gardner, which a lot of Bills fans are having fun with. But Luka, we know the story with this defense. They've been playing without Matt Milano. The pass rush, even though on a day where they got 4 sacks, it still feels like the pass rush leaves a lot to be desired. They were going against an offensive line that was playing with 3 backups for the majority of the day. But they managed to get the job done. week in and week out. Another example today, they even put up points of their own, 7 points on the scoreboard. What do you make of this defense?
It's not the best defense, but it's a solid defense. And what I mean by that is I think as a collective unit, they're not the greatest collective piece of talent that the Bills have had of recent years. I think that's pretty safe to say. I think we've had more talented defenses overall in the past. But as a collective unit, they operate so well. I think it's so finely tuned that even if they're allowing run a little bit too much, it seems like, but that's the bend but don't break atmosphere that they kind of are, results and everything that they give you. And on top of it all, like you said, they do come up with those timely plays at the perfect time. The Taron Johnson to start it off pick 6 was great. And then the Austin Johnson? I don't know why I wanted to say Austin Johnson, but I believe it. Yeah. So Austin Johnson with that pick was just a thing of beauty. And overall, I will say, you mentioned AJ Epinesa getting a sack. AJ Epinesa, to me, quite honest, it wasn't a great day, but it's not like something I was overly pissed off about because as a unit, collectively, it was just working. It just, I don't know how else to say it. It's just one of those things where no one needs to be a star. Everyone can do their job so well that as a whole, 1 of 11, all 11 together, they work great. And even when you're boundary corners, because AD Mitchell's finding separation, getting, their 10-yard outs or their quick hitches or whatever it is, when that's happening, it's still okay. Everything's fine. No one's panicking. No one's getting out of place. You don't have to worry about anyone on the field. Whoever's being asked to play that position, they're going to do their job and do it at a startable level, regardless if they're a stud or not. And then you do have your Taron Johnsons, your Bernards, whoever it is that do step up occasionally, game in, game out, and get those big plays for you in the timely manners that they need to, that it gets you over the finish line with a little bit of emphasis. And I love it a lot, or an exclamation point, I should say. So the defense is very good. It's just not quite great because you don't have those supreme talents all over the place, but that's okay. When you have Josh Allen on the other side, and hopefully when the offense gets healthier, and on top of it, you're going to get a Matt Milano hopefully back in December and so on and so forth. You're going to get healthier on the defensive side. This is a good spot to be. It's a very okay spot to be. And no one should feel any worry whatsoever after watching what they saw today. But at the same time, Josh, I will say this. I'm not expecting this defense then to get 3 interceptions against Mahomes next week with the pick 6 and be able to do everything they just did, because it's a little bit different going from Joe Flacco to Patrick Mahomes with Andy Reid at the helm as well. So it's one of those ones where I'm glad to see they had great success productively against this Colts team, because they should. They're a good enough unit to do that, and they did the job well.
Yeah, I think this defense is just fine. Like we all know this team is going to win as far as Josh Allen carries them. We need this defense not to just get run over in the playoffs. I think they're certainly set up for that. I still will say they're getting nothing out of Ed Oliver this year. I cannot remember one play he made today. I just checked the stat sheet. He had 0 tackles. It felt like he was out of position again on some of those early Taylor runs. Daquan Jones not having a great year. I'm ready for Eli Ankou to get called up to the active roster. I think he's their best run stuffing defensive tackle. And I'm ready for Daquan Jones to get less snaps. And I'm ready for Ed Oliver to do something. I don't know if he's still feeling the effects of the hamstring injury, but that is a concern. As far as the defensive line goes, I think they have 1 star on that unit. It's Greg Rousseau. He just continues to blossom. Looks very, very good. I think Terrell Bernard is somewhere between very good and star. I don't know. I think maybe I'm a little closer to very good at this point, but I'll also say they've gotten a leap out of Christian Benford this year, and they've gotten a leap out of Taylor Rapp. I was not excited about Taylor Rapp starting this year. Every week I've been more and more impressed. Today, the interception was just good ball skills. It bounced up in the air and he caught it, but I'm more talking about play to play intensity. They have a better, I said this on Twitter earlier this week. I think what they get this year out of Taylor Rapp and DeMar Hamlin in 2024 is better than what they got combined out of Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde in 2023. And part of that is because both of those players, Poyer and Hyde, became such liabilities tackling And I think Taylor Rapp is one of the best tacklers on the entire defense. And Damar Hamlin doesn't really ever make an ass out of himself trying to make a tackle. And that last line of defense, they're there for it. There was a play today where I believe it was Damar Hamlin was the last one standing between Jonathan Taylor and the end zone, and he got him down. And I think the Colts did end up scoring on that drive, but you never know what's going to happen after that point. So I'm very excited about the defense. There's not a whole lot to take away from this game. I can't really think of any strategy things that McDermott did. I do want to talk, like what the injury situation looks like heading into this Chiefs game. I also want to talk about your experience in Indiana today, Luka, and then just any kind of thoughts as far as big picture goes, some of these injuries and whatnot. But before we get into all that fun stuff, let's go ahead and put a bow on this game with our game balls and game checks awards. And then we'll still talk about this game as we sprinkle in some big picture stuff in your experience. Game ball award, Luka, you were at the game. Who gets your game ball for the Bills' 30-20 victory over the Indianapolis Colts?
I think there's a few guys. I will say it's for a win and kind of a quite decisive win. There's not a ton of candidates, I don't believe, for this game that could get a game ball. But the one that kind of stands out, we talked about it already. I'm glad you isolated him early on in the episode, and it's Mac Hollins. I mean, Mac Hollins stepped up and did exactly what you needed him to do when it was kind of vibes are low after Amari Cooper's out. You already understood that Keon Coleman's out. And on top of it all, during the game itself, you mentioned the Kincaid, or we have mentioned the Kincaid injury. He goes out, he comes back a little bit, he's out. And it's one of those ones where you understand you're a Shakir injury away, but someone still needs to do something on this offense. And Mac Hollins was there. And we talked about it earlier, so I don't need to go too crazy on this. But Mac Hollins definitely feels like he deserves a game ball in my eyes because he came to play. He showed up. He came up big a couple times there when he was called upon and needed. And props to him, man. He gets the game ball for that.
I love that call. I absolutely love that call. He's certainly worth game ball award in this game. Greg Rousseau is a guy that I think is very much worth a game ball. He got the sack, he got the strip, but to me, it was him containing the edge in the run game that really popped to me. There were a couple plays where the Colts had offensive linemen out there with him, and he still found a way to get the ball carry to the ground. It was impressive stuff out there. I really liked his game. I'm going to give a shout out to Dawson Knox, who I thought filled in admirably for Dalton Kincaid, made the big catch over the middle. But for me, and also Tyler Bass, backed up his big performance last week, 3 for 3 on field goals today, and not chip shots. The 47-yarder before half was major. The Bills needed momentum there. They needed that Mac Hollins catch you just referenced to be something other than a highlight, and it ended up being a 3-point play because Tyler Bass put the ball through the pipes. Another really good day for Tyler Bass, who's up to almost 86% on the season. And then Sam Martin, 54% or 54-yard average. Very, very good day out of him. But I'm going to go with Taron Johnson. You start the game off with a pick six. I do think he continues to show his value to this defense, both in run support and in coverage. He had another chance for a pick six today. He just has a nose for the football. And, and when you start the game off with a 10-0 lead and the defense is the 7 points of that, you're going to get my game ball. So Taron Johnson gets my game ball today. For the good, there's got to be some bad. And some wins this year, Luka, it's been hard to find some game check award winners. I do think today gives us a couple more opportunities. Who gets your game check for this performance?
I think this game presents a little too many candidates, I think, for this award. But I referenced it earlier. I don't have to go too much further. Codrington, he gets my game check. I think this was by far the worst game out of him since he's been a Bill. His return prowess was leaving a lot to be desired. And then just it felt perfect. I feel bad, but it feels perfect that we talked about it earlier as well. He gets mossed by Alec Pierce just to put kind of a little bit of salt in the wound of a bad day where it's obviously not a meaningful play to anyone. It's not like McDermott's even going to point it out to him or do anything negative to him. That's not his role. That's not his job on this team, but he gets mossed by Alec Pierce in the dying seconds just to kind of put that salt in his already open wound of a bad day. So Codrington sadly gets my game check award.
That's a good call. To me, he stands out for sure. He made a mistake that if Alec Anderson is not Johnny on the spot on that fumble, could have absolutely cost the Bills the game. The way the momentum was going at that point, he could have cost the Bills the game. And unfortunately, when you're a returner, there is no like 3 strikes, you're out. You can't put the ball on the ground when you're a returner, because this is not a team like the Drought Bills where you want Leotis McKelvin and Terrence McGee to be as aggressive as possible trying to score because the offense is probably going to go 3 and out. You just need to not screw it up. And I'm okay with you being aggressive, but this was like his one true kickoff return today, and he put it on the ground. So very bad performance. And I mentioned Alec Anderson. I feel like he should have even gotten a slight mention with the game ball, just because that was such a big play. And that ball was at the bottom of the pile for what felt like about 10 minutes. And then after the game, Alec Anderson continues to have a strong day, where Jordan Phillips is tagging Zaire Franklin on the Colts, asking him how that belt felt, I guess the whooping. And then Alec Anderson chimes in, tagging Zaire Franklin, saying, "And your podcast sucks too." I didn't know Zaire Franklin had a podcast, but that is a great line by Alec Anderson. And based on what you hear about him enjoying himself at Sabres games, this is a guy that just kind of feels like a Buffalo guy. But for me, I really want to go at Oliver because it's frustrating and it's disappointing. But there's a player that's been bothering me for a couple of weeks, and it popped up again today. In the spirit of game check, the idea of it is you could have not shown up today and the result may not have been much different. I certainly don't feel that about this player. I would not want to see what this game would look like if he didn't show up. But Dion Dawkins. Dion Dawkins is at this point feels like he is averaging 1 false start a week. He had 2 today. He looked like he really struggled last week with Chop Robinson for the Dolphins, who has not been having a good year. Dion Dawkins is still one of the better offensive tackles in the sport. He's very well compensated. He's done a lot more talking this year, which I don't care about players talking. It is what it is. It's kind of unique for an offensive lineman to talk as much as Dion Dawkins has been talking this year. And when you couple that with a lot of very preventable mistakes, false start mistakes, those can be potential drive killers. I wanted to call that out today because there were 2 in this game, and at this point, it feels like a very concerning trend with Dion Dawkins, Luka.
Yeah, no, Dion Dawkins was the other guy I would really go at. I think that's a spot on remark. He had 2 false starts, Josh, and honestly, live, I feel like there could have been 4 or 5. It felt like a day where the refs were kind of letting him go. Like they were giving you that good wiggle room to kind of freely take it. And Dion was just way above kind of the tolerance of what the refs were willing to do. And I think they were just being nice to him, to be quite honest, to only have actually 2 flagged. So he's struggling a little bit right now with that quick jump. He's just too antsy off the ball, off the snap, off the call, whatever you want to call it. It's upsetting, but I'll also put it this way. If the most upsetting thing you have about a left tackle is that he's just jumping, he's just jumping a little too quick, so be it. I mean, I'm not saying it's good. It's bad. Like it genuinely is bad, but it's better than, also letting your quarterback get killed a bunch when you shouldn't even be starting. It's like, no, of course, Dion Dawkins is a bookend of this offensive line. He's been for a long time. Him and Spencer Brown are incredible. You mentioned it earlier. I did notice live time. I mean, Spencer Brown's athleticism on that, it was just like, this guy is just a freak, like just an absolute freak. But Dion's also a freak athlete, and he's a great left tackle. It's just, he needs to clean that up. He doesn't want to be a Jawan Taylor out there, just leg kicking away and just getting false start after false start, or becoming a meme online, or both for that matter. So, it's a good shout out by you. That he had a tough day. He had a very, very tough day.
In a lot of ways, the Bills had a tough day, but ultimately they cover the spread. They score 30 points without 2 of their best offensive weapons, 3 if you want to include Kincaid. And this team is rolling right now. 5-game winning streak as they head into a very important matchup next week against the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to talk about a little bit about that game, the outlook for some of these injuries, what to expect this week. But Luka, before we kind of put this Colts game in the rearview mirror, I just want to hear about your experience. Your first time, I believe, at Lucas Oil Field, right?
Yep.
So what were your impressions of the stadium, the game day experience? Just let me hear everything start to finish. What were your overall thoughts?
First thing is, sitting down, that stadium feels huge. That stadium feels like a massive barn. Well, one, looks like a barn, but 2, feels like an absolute massive barn. It reminded me a lot of so now it's not University, what is it, State Farm Stadium, I think, now in Arizona. Whatever, it used to be University of Phoenix Stadium. I still call it like that till to this day. It reminded me of when I went to a game way back in like 2010. I watched the Max Hall Cardinals play the Sam Bradford Rams. If anyone wants a good, history lesson on that one, let's just say that wasn't a great game. Steven Jackson was the only touchdown, but this is not a Cardinals podcast. This is a Bills podcast. It was really cool. The audio in that place is impeccable. It is fantastic. Do they pump in crowd noise during third downs when they rev up their engine noises and stuff like that? Probably. But look, take care of your home field advantage. The roof was closed, Josh. I'm sure they talked about that just because it was raining in the morning. But then you have this, they call it the window. It is just a huge hole in the wall. Like, it is just a massive hole in the wall. And it was a little surreal that, even with that huge space in the wall, it is in little blips, it can get pretty loud. Now, the Colts fans were pretty not outnumbered, but I would probably say it was 45-55. I would say it was heavy, that maybe, let's call it 40-60. Bills fans to Colts fans. So there was 60% Colts fans. But in certain moments, Josh Allen just throws that one pick to Moore, and then, there's certain vibes that they're getting up, they're feeling good about themselves, things are happening. But outside of that, though, I will say this. I think McAfee is definitely tongue-in-cheek when he calls it the Loud House. I don't think it's the Loud House. I would say it could definitely be louder. I imagine in their height, Josh, of course, it's definitely a more ruckus atmosphere there. But overall, it's a very, very cool stadium. The around area is awesome. There's bars everywhere. It's a fantastic time to be there. I will say, in and out, getting in the stadium, coming out of the stadium, super easy. Shout out my cousin having a coworker who apparently has season tickets, dead nuts in the middle of the clubs, that then became available for this for me and my buddy as we waited it out. I will say, Josh, we did not have tickets until Friday night when those became available. And we just knew they were too good to pass up. We were gambling. We were going to buy morning of. That was our plan. Just because tickets were expensive. But overall, it was a blast. I will say that. Like, it's a great stadium. And the key takeaway of the stadium architecture itself, though, is it's very vertical, of course. And what I'm excited for is, I mentioned that it's not the loudest place I've ever been, of course, but when you think about that, and that's the more modern stadium architecture, Josh, I think about what that will be like similarly for the Bills' new stadium, and then what it could be like with Bills fans just packed to the brim in there, and what that environment would be like for years to come, because I feel like that can be something special, even with it not being a full dome, but a partially covered stadium that the Bills' future stadium will be. It got me a little bit excited for that, Josh, because there is something intimidating a little bit when you look across the field and it's just this vertical stand all the way up to what they call the 600s there.
Yeah.
And it just feels bigger than what we have, back in Buffalo at Highmark. It feels like a colossal stadium when you're sitting there.
The vertical look is always, it feels a lot bigger than, say, like a Notre Dame, where it's a giant bowl and they may have 100,000 fans in there, but it's so spread out.
Yeah.
Where maybe even more like the Rose Bowl, but where in a stadium where it's vertical, like you're saying, where there's like 2 or 3 decks there for sure. With the loss, the Colts fall to 4-6, although they're right in the thick of the AFC wild card race. Luka, you were saying stuff to me off the air. Benching Anthony Richardson for Joe Flacco, I think there's certainly an argument for it before you saw these last 2 games. Now Joe Flacco has lost 2 games in a row, has not looked good. I think in a lot of ways you could say one of the reasons they lost today is because of Joe Flacco. The vibe you got from fans was maybe that decision wasn't quite as popular as some of us might have thought from the outside.
It's not even a vibe. You could hear it very loudly. I mean, I'm sure you could even hear it on the broadcast. Boos. It was even more prevalent in the stadium, just how unhappy, the universal unhappiness of the Joe Flacco situation. And the kind season ticket holder to the left of my buddy in these seats. I mean, he couldn't say enough about how much he didn't enjoy Joe Flacco and how much they want Anthony Richardson in, and they don't care about the tap out situation. I mean, it became a meme. I told you off air, there was even the funny moment where people were leaving with like 8 minutes to go, but they made sure they posed for a picture because they were tapping out and they were visually showing themselves tap out. And it's like, this fan base clearly does not want to deal with a 39-year-old, washed up Super Bowl MVP quarterback sitting there like a statue, just not being able to get the job done. And they want to see what they have in the exciting Anthony Richardson. I mean, the funniest part was we early on, I don't even know if it was like the game had started yet. The individual to our left, he had talked about, they still think about that week one play when Richardson's got a guy draped on him and he still hits Alec Pierce in a bucket 60 yards down. And it's like, you see something like that in person, you want to get more of that. That's, as a fan, you want to see it because it's just unbelievable. As us, as a fan base with Josh Allen, fully understand it. You want to see the highest ceiling with the potential and develop it. And if you are a good enough team and organization, you should be able to play them and develop them accordingly and not kill any confidence or whatever it might be that you're doing that you feel like you need to bench him or make, have him feeling like he can actually just tap out and rest because that's acceptable. It's one of those things that it feels like they need to handle it differently. And moving forward, Colts fans want none of it. And if they start Joe Flacco one more week, Josh, you could be I mean, I think they have the Lions at home next, whenever their next home game is, it's the Lions. If Joe Flacco's starting by that point, I mean, the fan to our left was already talking about how he's going to be selling his tickets for that game because he wants no part of that. And you're killing any confidence and hope that any Colts fan has of future right now. And the only thing you can do to kind of get that back is by putting the future back under center in Anthony Richardson. You got to stop this Joe Flacco stuff. It's nonsense.
It's such an interesting conundrum because I think you could still probably make the argument that Joe Flacco gives you the better chance to win. I'm not convinced of that. I think Anthony Richardson's athleticism adds a new dynamic to this offense, and I think Joe Flacco's making a lot of mistakes. But if the Colts just basically go 500 down the stretch with the state of the AFC, they should make the playoffs just given how many bad teams are in the AFC. You get two from it just depends what happens with the Broncos, really. But what does it really matter? If you're realistic with yourself, are the Colts going to go on the road and beat the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Ravens 3 times in a row to get to the Super Bowl? Probably not. So you have this quarterback you took in the top 4 I don't say this lightly, has Josh Allen attributes. I mean, there's more to Josh Allen than his physical skills, but he has the ability to run faster than Josh Allen. He can throw the ball as far as Josh Allen. He is a big dude. I mean, if you create somebody in Madden, you give him what Anthony Richardson has, and he just needs experience. And you mentioned it, Luka, the splash plays you saw. You just have to find a way to channel those. And I think it's a bit of an organizational failure when he had a really bad moment a couple weeks ago where he tapped out of a game to then bench him off of that. You're supposed to support your guy. You're supposed to back your guy. And now he becomes kind of a national joke. And when the Colts bench him after that, the joke just gets louder and funnier. And you feel bad for Anthony Richardson. You hope that it can work out in Indy or just in general for the kid. But, they're botching this. And then I was thinking about this today for Colts fans of certain ages, because it's always interesting trying to think about like how many Bills fans really that we interact with really remember the Kelly days, like the peak Kelly days, late 80s, early 90s. Like that's a little young for you. That's a little old for you, I should say. Me, it was just, I was like 8 when they were going to the Super Bowls. I knew about it, but I wasn't engulfed in it. But for Colts fans, almost every Colts fan out there got a piece of the Manning era. And then they got Andrew Luck in the draft, who was as can't miss as a can't miss prospect can be. They felt so good about that pick, they were willing to usher Peyton Manning out the door, which I think at the time made a lot of sense. And from there, Andrew Luck retires early, and they have been absolutely spinning their wheels. firing coaches, picking the wrong quarterbacks, instead of addressing quarterback in the draft up until taking Anthony Richardson, just taking cast-offs like the Phillip Rivers on his last legs, Matt Ryan on his last legs. We're going to throw Jacoby Brissett out there. And then they finally get this kid Richardson who looks like he could be something, and they're not even a full slate of a rookie season, 17 games into his career, and he's benched. So fascinating situation for Colts fans. And that's not our problem, but I think as a group of fans that went 17 years without the playoffs, wondering if we'd ever find a good quarterback, watching how the Bills drafted and developed Josh Allen into what he is today, just gives you a brand new appreciation for those Bills. Speaking of the Bills, Luka, they have some very tough injury luck going on right now. Dalton Kincaid left today with a leg injury. Thigh doctor on Twitter is nervous about it potentially being a PCL situation where he could miss the next 3 to 4 weeks. There is a bye week mixed in there, which this bye week just can't come soon enough. But you're looking at a situation where maybe Amari Cooper's back next week. I am not optimistic at all that Keon Coleman is back next week. I would say, given the early outlook, I'm not optimistic that Dalton Kincaid is back next week. I understand the Chiefs are the boogeyman. They are the team that has ended the Bills season twice or 3 times, excuse me, and then twice in very painful manner. And they're the measuring stick team. Luka, how much personally are you putting into this Chiefs game? And I'm asking that in a way where if you were in charge and the trainer comes to you and says, I think Amari Cooper can go, he's not going to be 100%. And there's a chance that if he gets hit wrong, he could be out another month. Where if you let him just go through the bye, he's good. I think Dalton Kincaid can go, but he's like going to be 80%. And if he gets hit wrong, he could be out another month. What would you do? Would you treat this like, well, fuck it, it's the Chiefs, all hands on deck, we got a bye week next? Or would you slow play this and say, we have a 4.5 game lead in our division, and we've lost playoff games the last 2 years in Buffalo because we fielded half a roster. We're not going to risk these guys just to win a regular season game in November.
I think that decision changed as soon as the Broncos had their field goal blocked. Let me start with that. If next week was for kind of we'll call it the week 11 hold of the 1 seed, that would have accelerated maybe hey, Amari, we do need you at 80%. Hey, Kincaid, we need you at 75%. I will say this on Kincaid. I saw a clip where I believe he was just talking to some reporter afterwards, and he said, he thought he could get out there, then it wasn't working out, but he feels okay. I'm not sure how much to take into that when a player just says they feel okay as they're at their locker. Things can change, of course, after the fact once they get looked at a little bit in more detail. But since the Chiefs were able to pull off the blocked field goal and beat the Broncos, and now they are, still undefeated as they come into Orchard Park, I think ultimately, yeah, the big picture matters more. The playoffs matter more, of course. You need to make sure you have all hands on deck when the games matter the most. And as we watch this pickoff in Houston, I think the thing that we need to know here is, hey, would it be awesome to have Amari Cooper and then beat the Chiefs? Yes. But do you feel like Amari Cooper's the missing piece to beat the Chiefs? No. As long as you have 17 under center, you have a chance to beat the Chiefs. Let's not forget, Josh, he is technically 3-1 against the Chiefs in the regular season. It's not like this team hasn't beaten the Chiefs before. And that's, of course, I mean, the one loss technically is at home. The 3 wins were in Arrowhead. It's like they can beat this team in the regular season, but that's also, I will say it like this. That's also probably because the Chiefs don't also go all the way out and they don't put all hands on deck in the regular season. They are evaluating it like, hey, we need to make sure we're at our best when the playoffs come around. And that includes health and availability. You don't want your AJ Kleins guarding Travis Kelce. You don't want to kind of be scrapping the bottom of the barrel with your receiving weapons when you're in the divisional round at Arrowhead, or in the, say you get to the AFC Championship game, wherever it may be, even if you're hosting it, and it's like you just can't do anything. So it's one of those things where would I love to see them I will say this. If the re-injury chances are low, I would think you would still like to try to get this one. If there's any shot at the 1 seed, of course, you need to win this game. But if re-injury is something of concern at all, yes, I'm with the thought process of, hey, we got the bye coming up. That extra week plus will be able to get you back to, let's say, 95, if not 100%. And then from there, we can kind of get rolling as they get into a huge stretch where they welcome the Niners in town for Sunday Night Football. Then they hit that road for the Rams, the Lions. And then once you get through that, you just wrap up the division from there and you start getting rolling for the playoffs when it actually matters. And you need all of those guys to kind of win those games.
Sorry if I made a face while you were talking. They happened to show the quarterback stats from the Sunday night game. I have not been watching it
intently. It's crazy.
5 interceptions for Jared Goff.
It's a pickoff. This is, I mean, CJ Stroud's also throwing bad interceptions too. Like, this is just like, every time I look over to my left, I don't know what I'm watching, to be quite honest.
Holy cow. I think, I'm with you. I don't need, if the Bills were to come out on Saturday, Friday and say, look, Keon Coleman can't go, Amari Cooper can't go, Dalton Kincaid can't go. It's not like I'm going to go apple picking on Sunday instead of watching the game. I'm going to watch the game, and I'm going to think that the Bills have a very good chance to win that game. Bo Nix was a blocked field goal at Arrowhead away from beating the Chiefs. Baker Mayfield, without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, was an all-time blunder by Todd Bowles of going for 2 and getting it away from beating the Chiefs at Arrowhead. There is a skill, I think. The Patriots had this in winning these one-score games, but the last 5 times the Bills have played the Chiefs, including playoffs, there's been 3 Bills wins and 2 one-score losses. I don't think that the Bills are outmatched by this team. I don't think they're outclassed by this team. And I don't think even without 3 of their 4 best weapons, that this is a Bills team that should just feel like they're going into this game donating it to the Chiefs. I'm very excited for this game. And also, Luka, I just realized I haven't even thought about looking up a spread for this game. Do you happen to know it by chance?
I have no idea what it is. No.
Why don't you take a guess while I look it up? That'll be the last thing we talk about tonight.
Vibes are high, I will say. Let's see. Vibes are high. Bills at home, coming off a win. Health obviously concerned in a few weapons. Chiefs are still obviously perfect. I don't think any injuries came from the Chiefs-Broncos game that is of note. I'm gonna go ahead and say Chiefs minus 1.5.
Bingo. Chiefs minus 1. Well, I said bingo. Chiefs minus 1. It looks like it's even as 1.5 on several books, but that's basically a pick 'em. I know that, a couple points go to the home team, particularly in Buffalo. This is telling you that if the game were in Arrowhead, maybe it would be, it's not 6 like it used to be. Like, it's not a 6-point swing. It's probably like if this was an Arrowhead, maybe 2.5 or 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, Chiefs by 1.5. Josh Allen is a home dog. Let me get a little piece of that earlier in this week. A little piece of that. Hate betting against Mahomes, but Josh Allen is a road dog. And the Chiefs are missing some dudes.
Yeah.
They're missing Rashee Rice, who might be better than every receiver we've talked about for the Bills so far. They're missing Marquise Hollywood Brown. They're missing one of their best cornerbacks, Jalen Watson. So, it's not like, I know there's a ability for a lot of fans to just kind of live in your own world and only think that you're the team with the only problems in the world, but there are other teams missing some things. I'm excited about this game, Luka. Take the number 1 seed out of it. I know it's a huge piece of it. What does the Bills Chiefs regular season matchup mean to you? Is it a big deal because it's this team? Will you feel better about the Bills' chances of beating this team in January if they beat them next week? Is this game extra special? What is your overall overarching feeling on this rivalry right now?
It's just enjoying football at its best. That's what this game is. I mean, there's a reason CBS was hyping it up for the entirety of fourth quarter, both for Jets Cardinals, shout out Cardinals, and then also for Cowboys Eagles, as the rematch, or I don't know if they called it the next matchup, whatever. I mean, it's Manning Brady. That's what this has become. Mahomes Allen is Manning Brady. I mean, I still love how years ago, of course, for some good reason of that credit where credit's due. Burrow, Mahomes, maybe he's becoming that Brady, Manning and stuff. It's like, no, let's not kid ourselves. There's a reason that when the Bills play the Chiefs, you get the best out of both sides, and particularly, of course, the quarterbacks, and you're going to see football at its peak. And that is what it is. I mean, that's when it's in the regular season, that's all it is. There's nothing on the line other than a win or loss that'll potentially have its meanings when it comes to seeding and all that kind of stuff. But it's not the playoffs. It's not the divisional round. It's not the conference championship. It is just a week 11 game. Got to remind yourself that as much as you want to win it, as much as you said, the big chunk of it being the number one seed, being so vital for that first round bye, the wild card bye. But it's just going to be football at its best. It's Josh, it reminds me of those Manning Brady, where it's like, even if the Bills were on, I wasn't paying attention if it was Manning Brady. Like you're just watching the best form of football over there. And that's what it is. And now we get to enjoy that as Bills fans with Mahomes coming to town for yet another edition of this Chiefs Bills game. That it's just extra special. And there's a reason CBS wanted no part of giving that for the flex for Sunday Night Football. As that game calling, what was it? It was originally, what was it? Was it Jets Colts originally for Sunday Night Football? And then they flexed it out for something else. And people were looking at the schedule and it's like, well, why wouldn't you do Bills Chiefs? And it's because CBS said, hell nah, that's Romo and Nance. And we paid a lot of money for that game and you are getting no part of it. Good reason and stuff like that. And I just always look forward to it. No matter, just as a neutral football fan, but also my bias there, it is just football at its best.
I will say, if you want to be optimistic about the terrible situation the Bills are in injury-wise, if you think there is a high likelihood, which I do, that these teams will meet again in January, the Chiefs will not get a chance to go against a fully formed Bills offense that has Amari Cooper, Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, and Dalton Kincaid, and basically take a test drive for their defense against those weapons. And the first test drive will come in the playoffs. Hopefully that they're all healthy. Maybe that's a good thing. Who knows? I mean, the Bills have beaten the Chiefs the last 3 regular seasons, and what has it amounted to? I always struggle with that Manning Brady comparison, because I always hear these opposing fans on Twitter that are always like, "Oh, well, Josh Allen hasn't won a Super Bowl." Well, okay, we understand Mahomes is the Brady here, and it took Manning a while to win one. And really, to me, Joe Burrow is the Roethlisberger of that era. Manning lost a home playoff game to a young Roethlisberger before he ever won a Super Bowl. That's the Josh Allen track right now. But when you're talking about Manning and Brady, it's because those two guys were consistently in the playoffs every single year, consistently one of the top seeds every single year. Lamar's missed the playoffs before. Burrow's missed the playoffs before. And Lamar, I don't know where he fits in that Manning Brady comparison. Maybe he's the Rivers at this point in time. But yeah, it's so mind boggling that the Bills are one of those two teams where it's like the world is saying, "Hey, Bills Chiefs next week." Like that's the game. That's the game. When you talk about spotlight games in the NFL, I can't think of another game right now. Maybe Ravens Chiefs that gets as much hype as Bills Chiefs, and Ravens Chiefs doesn't have the back and forth highlight level playoff clashes where they've met one time and the Chiefs just kind of like discarded them in their building. So I'm excited for it. Excited to see what happens. Hopefully no more injuries happen. The Bills get a win, get some guys back, get to their bye week, and we're all having a good time. Either way, Luka, we will be here for post game. You're traveling back tomorrow?
Yep. First thing in the morning. Whenever my body decides to wake up on Veterans Day, it'll be just pack up and get back to the 716.
Well, I have a podcast you can listen to on your way back. Now, it might sound like a replay in your brain, but I can highly recommend it. It's called Bills Chat, if you ever heard of it, as you're traveling back. But Luka and I'll be back on Bills Chat podcast next week following Bills Chiefs. I'll be back at halftime of Bills Chiefs, breaking it all down. And don't look now, Luka, but Sabres Chat second place Sabres right now. Is that what it is? Did I see that right?
I don't know where they're at this point. We'll see after the Montreal game. If you're listening to this, the Montreal game might have even happened already since it's a 12:30 puck drop on Veterans
Ooh,
Day. I'm missing that one, unfortunately, too, since I'll be on the way back home. But yeah, I mean, they're on a 3-game win streak, second 3-game win streak of the season, Josh.
love
Crazy,
that.
crazy world we live in. Tage Thompson, 10 goals in 15 games. I mean, it's vibes are high right now. I will shout out this weekend for me. I will say it's a great weekend for the Luka household. Perfect weekend sports. All sports won
Go
across
through
the
it. You know
board.
you want to.
I absolutely want to go through it. I mean, it starts out with the Sabres win. You get the ASU win. Even Notre Dame wins. Bills win. Cardinals win. Even Liverpool wins, while also other results go their way as well. Man City loses another one. And just the sprinkle on top, shout out my buddy who's in the over there. St. Bonaventure, there's probably some Bonas out here, gets a hard-fought 9-point win against Canisius. It was a perfect weekend. I cannot believe it. These are far and few in between, Josh, and I just have to savor in them. It makes it extra sweet, as I know Bills fans listening out there, when the Cardinals are absolutely thumping Rodgers, making him look like a lost child out there with these nobodies on defense that the Cardinals are putting out there and actually wreaking havoc. You allow 6 points to the Jets. I don't care how nobody you are a solid NFL defense. I will take the chirps now. I will take them later. I don't care. Josh, this could be the year that we get Bills Cardinals Super Bowl. Don't say it now.
Mhm. I could go like 30 minutes on the AFC East, what's happened, the role the Cardinals have played in that. I've been thinking about what we're going to do during the bye week. Unless Bills Chiefs just leaves us with like a game that we just have to talk about again, I feel like the bye week is a great chance to kind of reset expectations versus reality,
Yeah.
because there's a lot to talk about in this division, particularly if the Dolphins lose tomorrow night to the Rams. But for Luka, safe travels tomorrow, my friend. I'm glad you had a good time in Indy. Glad you brought home a winner. I am Josh McCarty. We will talk to you next week on Bills Chat.